It's new video day. Somehow, always forget to have my meds before I start filming. Hi, I'm Connie Glynn, a writer and one-time YouTube sensation. Okay. Oh my god, wait, while I have you here, and very topically, please go and buy a copy of The Cursed Melodies right now because it's only 99p on Kindle for the entire month of October. This will probably never happen again. I think they chose it because it's like oopie spoopy and it's oopie spoopy season. But yes, 99p all of October, and this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, truly. Anyway, last month on Patreon Baby Club, I did a diary entry where I very briefly discussed my writing process, and I had this violent memory of when I first started writing Undercover Princess back in 2016, and what a very different time in our lives that was. And I was suddenly yanked by my hair, remembering the phenomenon that was YouTuber books. So the first thing I did, naturally, was make a little TikTok hot take video about them. You guys remember a time when every YouTuber suddenly released a book? The era of 2010s YouTube was insane. It's like nothing ever. Brands were falling over themselves to work with these people. Everyone wanted a slice of the YouTuber pie, and rightly so. And then came the publishers. YouTuber books, to be clear, were such a sensation that they often had their own shelf in bookshops. Booksellers knew that these books were an extremely hot item and they needed to be easy for people to find. Between 2015 and 2017, you basically couldn't avoid them. Now though, where are they? Rosie left a comment on my TikTok saying she still has all her YouTuber books, which I think is so amazing because these are basically historical items now. Today I want to talk about 3 and a bit YouTuber books that I think really define that era and lay out the history and evolution of influencers writing books, as well as their effect on publishing as a whole. But before we get into it, this month's sponsor is Holy Soft Drinks. Holy make a variety of soft drinks for every mood in a vast array of cute and fun flavors, and despite being absolutely delicious, they're also 0 sugar and aspartame free, which frankly shocked me because, well, they taste amazing. I mean, literally just watch this clip of me first trying it. Alright, it's time for baby's first taste test. Ugh. Oh, that's good. Okay. Yeah, that's good. On my personal curriculum this month, I put, learn how to make your own drinks at home, girl. We cannot be spending all this money. So the most exciting thing for me is that they have an iced tea collection, baby. Do you know how hard it is to find 0 sugar iced teas that taste good? Do you? Well, the struggle is over. Thank you, Holy. My fave flavor is this one, which is the raspberry, vanilla, and hibiscus. Also, it comes in these big tubs with 50 servings, so you can make it at home whenever you want, which is much better value than going out and getting drinks all the time. Who does that? Who has been doing that? Not me. I recommend the Starter Set Deluxe, which includes sample flavors of energy, hydration, and iced tea. You can use the code Connie5 for £5 off your first order with a minimum spend of $14.99, or you can use the code Connie for 10% off. There's a link in the description below. I promise you will love it and be equally amazed as I was. Okay, baby, on to YouTuber book number 1. Book 1. The Amazing Book is Not on Fire. YouTuber books usually fell into 3 categories, and they were non-fiction, which would be self-help guides, memoirs, essays, activity books, and rarely fiction. The Amazing Book is Not on Fire, often abbreviated to Tabanoff, was released in 2015 by beloved YouTube pair Dan and Phil, aka Dan is Not on Fire and Amazing Phil. Tabanoff fell somewhere between a memoir and an activity book. It was funny, and it provided illustrations, photos, behind-the-scenes info, and, fan service lore. I'm going to say my hot take right now. I believe this book is the pinnacle of these types of books. This was one of the best and most well executed of the entire YouTuber book genre. A lot of you told me in the comments of that TikTok that you had this book. And a lot of you also told me that of all of the YouTuber books, it was the only one you still had. Actually, let's read some of these anecdotes. The only ones I still have are Dan and Phil ones. I still have the Dan and Phil one. I saw it at Barnes & Noble and begged my mum for it. Same, I adored that book. Hot take, Dan and Phil probably made it work the best. The whole Tabanoff, Tatanoff era was a cultural reset for how YouTubers reach their fans, and honestly sets the standard now. I agree. It's clear from these replies that this book had a lasting impact impact on a lot of people, and To the Dan and Phil fandom wasn't just a one and done, but a cherished piece of fandom memorabilia, which I think was essentially the goal, or at least it should have been the goal for many of the YouTubers releasing books in this era. Tabanoff was unsurprisingly a major success and an instant bestseller, which of course makes publishers very, very happy. Yippee! In this case, in the UK, this was Ebury Publishing, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House. Oh, hello, Penguin. Hi. Penguin is also my publisher. Love you guys. Mwah. Now, here's the thing. What if I told you that Tabanoff was not just a good example of a YouTuber book, it was also possibly the reason why a book by a smaller author who you might love was able to be published? And what if I told you that YouTuber books as a whole were all actually really, really good? Okay, bear with me because there were a lot of books in this memoir self-help guide activity book category. I'm not going to be able to cover them all. We've got Alfie Day's Pointless Book, PewDiePie This Book Loves You, Shane Dawson I Hate My Selfie, Dodie Clark's Secrets for the Mad, Tyler Oakley Binge, Hannah Hart Buffering, Tanya Burr Love Tanya, Louise Penton Life with a Sprinkle of Glitter, Fleur de Force, Marcus Butler, Bethany Moda. There were a lot of them, okay? Side note, This Book Loves You was actually a fictional satire, but it was a satire of YouTuber books, so I'm counting it. Now, obviously not every YouTuber book in this like memoir, self-help guide category was going to be good, and I mean that in the divine sense of the word. Some of them were bad and cash grabby and just downright garbage. I will let you fill in the blanks yourselves. But they were mostly bankable for publishers, and that is a rare and good thing. Okay, I'm about to wrangle in the Colleen Hoover discourse into this video. So the TLDR is Colleen Hoover is a romance fiction writer who sells a lot of books. People love, 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 love her stuff and they'll buy it. And on the flip side, people hate her and hate her books. Such is the dichotomy of publishing. But the fact is, her books sell and people like them. There's often a lot of backlash to books like this, things that are considered easy, marketable, easy to digest. People look down on them, but best-selling books that publishers can bank on often pay for the less bankable books. This is why bankable bestsellers are important. They're all part of the publishing machine. If you want your esoteric pieces about cannibalism as love, then you also need your bankable bestsellers that are going to pay for those books. And for a brief moment in time, that gold mine was YouTuber books. This is very important to remember when we discuss the next book on the list. The most controversial of them all. Book 2. Zoe Sugg, aka Zoella's Girl Online. Girl Online was published in the UK by Penguin. Hello again, Penguin. You guys are really raking up those YouTuber books, huh? Anyway, where was I? Oh yes, it published in November 2014 and the world was never the same again. Zoe Sugg, YouTube sensation. She could post a video of what was in her bag and a million of you little bitches would watch it. Her book was obviously going to be a huge hit. Okay, prepare for some absolute whopper figures. In its first week, Girl Online sold upwards of 78,000 copies. To make it clear how big that is, that set the bar at the time for a debut author's sales figures. By 2015, it had reached well over 300,000 sales across the UK. Mamma mia! Now, I have no idea what the advance figure was on this book, but it's safe to say Penguin made a lot of money off Girl Online. Good job, team. The success and cultural impact of this book, as well as the huge amount of money it made, is all very important to keep in mind when we discuss the giant elephant in the room, the ghostwriter allegations. So after Girl Online was published, there was some speculation as to how much of the book Zoe Sugg actually wrote. Rumors began to circulate that she had enlisted a ghostwriter or that she had had severely heavy editorial input. The person people were pointing their fingers at as this possible ghostwriter was YA author Siobhan Curran. Okay, so we're just going to read one of these articles that came out at the time. Sugg's own acknowledgements in her book could be taken as light confirmation of her writing help, as she thanks everyone at Penguin for helping me put together my first novel, especially Amy Alwood and Siobhan Curran, who were with me every step of the way. The latter name, Siobhan Curran, is who allegedly was Suggs' primary ghostwriter. Curran wrote a blog post in August describing how Penguin asked her to write a novel in 6 weeks. That post has since been deleted, but The Telegraph has quotes from the post. When I was asked this year by a publisher if I could write a book for them, and oh yes, please could I write it in 6 weeks, you can imagine the expletive deleteds that popped into my head. But part of me was intrigued, so I decided to accept the challenge, and I did it. I wrote an entire 80,000 word novel in 6 weeks. If this unnamed novel is in fact Girl Online, which, it must be clear, Penguin has denied, it would seem that Curran wrote the entire novel herself. Sugg, for her part, released a note on social media acknowledging the controversy before she said she was going to take a break from being online. So that was from a Bustle article that came out in 2014, and it's quite like exciting language, but to be clear, from my perspective reading it, there's nothing in there that's actually particularly damning evidence. It's all basically rumor and speculation. To this day, no one except Zoe and the team that worked on her book will ever really know what the truth is when it comes to Girl Online and who wrote what. I do know that a lot of people really loved that book and they loved Zoella. This comment I got reads, "Girl Online are still my guilty pleasure," and someone replied, "No, because why do I reread them annually at 21 years old?" Someone also left this comment, which I think is probably the most important thing. "I remember when Zoe Suggs' book came out and there was more backlash over the fact she had a ghost co-writer than when multiple male YouTubers were outed as predators. Clock it. Need I say more?" Regardless of the backlash, the fact remains these books sold incredibly well. They sold so well that it really set a trend in publishing. YouTuber books. Zoe was basically the godmother of this trend. It's probably thanks to Zoe that I was able to get my foot in the publishing door. So thanks, my girl. And yet, despite the success of this book and the cultural impact, I also saw a lot of comments like this. "I don't think I've ever seen a charity shop bookshelf that didn't contain Zoella's Girl Online. I literally see a YouTuber book every time I go into a charity shop now." So Girl Online, like most books from the YouTuber book era, has not outlived the trend. And I do actually remember that Girl Online would often be found in the YouTuber book section of a bookshop as opposed to the general fiction section. And why is that? It turns out YouTuber books were only phase 1 because it is not uncommon to this day for influencers to publish books. Only now it's, less intense and controversial. But the question remains, how does one differentiate between an influencer book and a book written by an influencer? Book 3, The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. This book was such a sensation that when I went to Amsterdam after finishing my A-levels, we visited the Anne Frank house and there were 2 people in front of us and one of them says to the other,
"Oh my god, these are the same stairs that Hazel Grace walked up."
Mamma mia! What a time to be alive, truly. John Green is one of the godfathers of YouTube, a pinnacle of vlogging. He was one of the OGs way back in 2007 with his brother Hank Green and their Vlog Brothers channel. And he also was super active on Tumblr under the account Fishing Boat Proceeds. And his fans were called the Nerd Fighters and they could interact with him there. I was very active on Tumblr at that time and I would often see his account. Here is John Green.
Good morning, Hank. It's Tuesday. So this week, my book, The Fault in Our Stars, is at #1 on the USA Today and New York Times bestseller list, which is bananas, and it's made me think about all the books I've loved that aren't bestsellers.
Although he published Looking for Alaska before his internet forays, The Fault in Our Stars came out at a time of major YouTube hysteria. And yet the thing is, a lot of people who picked up or pick up his books aren't necessarily aware of his internet presence. His books would never have sat on the YouTuber bookshelf. The Fault in Our Stars was really a pinnacle of book written by a YouTuber as opposed to YouTuber book, which, well, is the same experience that I had. So I didn't feel like I could really talk about my book here. I don't know, it felt a little inappropriate, but realistically, Undercover Princess and The Cursed Melodies and my entire writing career would be a pretty good example of someone successfully segueing from internet to writing, or even just segueing from writing through YouTube. A few more examples would be Lindsay Ellis with Axiom's End, or Savannah Brown and her numerous poetry collections. In regards to the previous problem, which is how do you tell the difference between an influencer book and a book written by an influencer, I've broken it down into one simple question. Would anyone buy this book if they weren't a fan of the creator? That's really all it boils down to. Because a lot of influencer books or YouTuber books were essentially pieces of fandom merchandise. You're not gonna buy a Dan and Phil t-shirt if you don't know who they are. In the same way you wouldn't have bought Tabanoff if you didn't know who Dan and Phil were. It would have been weird. I don't know, maybe you did. I don't want to shit on you if you did. I mean, actually, genuine question. Did any of you discover a YouTuber through their YouTuber book? I would really like to know. And I'm not talking about like the John Greens or the Undercover Princesses. I'm specifically talking about like the classic merchandise style YouTuber books. Did you discover a YouTuber through any of them? Please let me know. John Green's The Fault in Our Stars was obviously extremely inspirational for me as somebody who had this major presence online but had lofty dreams of being a published author. I read it in the year it came out, 2012, and I had it in my mind the entire time I was writing Undercover Princess. I knew people who read that book who had never heard of John Green as an internet person, and that was the goal. That was what I dreamed would happen for me. The idea that someone might discover me through my book as opposed to my book through me, Oh, it was thrilling. Let me tell you, it was thrilling. That's literally how I found John Green. I read Looking for Alaska when I was in sixth form, and then I read The Fault in Our Stars, and a year later I discovered John's Tumblr and the Vlogbrothers, and I put 2 and 2 together. Okay, now before we finish this video, there is one more book and influencer I want to mention who I think is one of the greatest in terms of segueing from YouTube to writing. A shining star of the book written by a YouTuber club. There's not very many of us. So much so that I think people actually forget that they originally started on YouTube. Book 3.1, Iron Widow by Shiran J. Zhao. I first discovered Shiran through their YouTube video about American Chinese food. I followed their Twitter and I have been watching their writing career unfold with just absolute admiration. I think they are so cool.
Have you ever laughed at American Chinese food? Like, that's not real Chinese food. What made you think that? Is there this notion in your mind that American Chinese food is inherently fake and inferior to food from China itself? See, I once thought that too, but then my mind was changed after I looked deeper into the history of American Chinese food.
Iron Widow is a phenomenon of a book, and I think their juggling of internet presence and books is really good, especially all of their Robespierre stuff.
You think leftists nowadays are too radical? Oh, honey, back in my day.
Nowadays, the line between influencer and author can often feel blurred because it's sort of a given that any author is going to have some sort of social media presence. And obviously, we've seen a lot of people over the past few years who have like big book talk followings who are then able to use their big book talk followings to more easily get their foot in the publishing door and achieve their dreams of becoming an author. We're seeing more and more that this is not a bad thing. Often people that want to communicate and have things to say will gravitate to social media. Right? So it's really always made sense to me that there would be this natural crossover between people that make content online and people who write books. And of course, it helps to have a head start with an audience, and it helps to have a platform in which you can promote your work. Okay, the end. Thank you all for watching. Please let me know any YouTuber books that you guys had. I would love to hear about them. And also if you can think of any other YouTubers that segued into writing, or perhaps even the other way around. Yes, just please let me know. I think that whole period of the internet where the influencer was birthed from the YouTube sphere is so fascinating. I feel very honored to have been even just a small part of it. It's been really fun for me just like seeing what it's evolved into now. Anyway, you know the drill, guys. Please buy my books. Big thank you to Holy, our sponsor. There's links in the description box. The Cursed Melodies is waiting for you to read it. It's an excellent autumnal read, and it's only 99p on Kindle. I'm still gagged that I got chosen. I'm literally like, what? And thank you immensely to my patrons. You guys make these videos possible, and I really am eternally grateful for you. Thank you so much. Kisses, kisses, kisses. Mwah. Thank you all for watching. Bye.